So, welcome to round 3 of the me buildy PC thing. I still haven't come up with a good name for it. Things have escalated. Yeah, so some decisions were made because we had the problem on the last video where I wasn't sure about what I was going to do around graphics cards. In the meantime, things started going on sale that I quite liked the look of, so I started buying stuff. Because why not? So what I've actually decided to do is make this a 2-step process where I'm going to upgrade the PC, get all the new parts in it, use the graphics card that I currently have. That's the thing that does all the games and makes them look pretty. It's quite an old one, but it'll do. It's not a bad one by any means, it's just not as good as it could be. And then down the line, when the graphics card market stops being quite so chaotic, I'll buy a graphics card. So as we sit, it's the 8th of September. I think I mentioned in the last video that Nvidia announced their new graphics cards at the beginning of the month. There's rumours that AMD are going to announce their graphics cards next month. I'm not expecting there to be stock of the new Nvidia cards until sometime hence in the future, so we're not sure what's going to happen there. But I thought in the meantime I'll get the PC built up and we can have a play about with it anyway. So anyway, without further ado, here is some memory, RAM, some storage. Remember when hard disks were massive big chunky things? Well now it's in there and it doesn't even fill the box. Case fans for cooling. I only had one in the last PC, 2 actually, but one of them was broken. One motherboard, I nearly dropped that. One motherboard, that is, this is the first thing I bought because it was on offer, got a good deal. I'll go over costs and stuff as we're doing this as well, probably as we're doing the build maybe, because I'll have stuff to chat about then. And finally, I haven't got room on the desk for the motherboard right now. One processor. I got a good deal on this one as well. This is one higher than the processor I wanted to buy. That motherboard is the best quality motherboard than the motherboard I wanted to buy. So yeah, I think we get started now. I'm not sure how I'm going to set this up camera wise, we'll see, but unfortunately you will be on the audio from the G7X, so it might not be quite as good for the rest of the video, but we'll deal with it. Well, that is great camera angles of our time. You're now looking down upon my desk. The light is probably going to be a little bit limiting here because I didn't really think about that, did I? And hey, I'm not a professional studio. Anyway, first step is to get the old PC, which I have stored conveniently under the desk. So this is a 5-year-old case. Tastes have changed a little bit now. You tend to have a lot more glass here, which means you can see the things inside. In my case though, I didn't really deem that important for this build. Sounds like someone started a loud motorbike outside. What you really should be doing is wearing a static band, which takes the static out of your hands, well, out of your body basically, and dissipates it into something that's earthed. So this is the current build. We have the power supply, we have the graphics card, case fan, there's another case fan there, a couple of hard disks, solid state drives hidden away up there somewhere, a Blu-ray drive that I've never used, RAM sticks, ooh, be careful, the graphics card's warm. The graphics card generates a lot of heat, hence these metal parts here which are like cooling pipes. There's a lot of like additional wiring in here as well, which is for the power buttons on the front and the USB header. These are probably the bits that are going to be the most awkward to set up because there's a little bit of, I'm not going to say guesswork, but there's a little bit of faff involved with these. But I'm going to start really now by just basically taking everything out of here that I don't need anymore. I'll probably just take everything out of here with a view to putting it back in a slightly different order and positioning it better. I'm quite lucky in that when I bought this power supply, it's actually modular, so I can pull pieces out like the wires. I'll try and show you in more detail in a moment. But let's get started. Always have a screwdriver set handy with various bits of old 3D printer in there. Probably not the best screwdriver set for the job. I don't think some of these screws are really big enough. They'll do. I want to switch these fans out. I do have a full set of new fans and I want all matching fans, just newer ones that'll hopefully be a bit quieter. so I am going to take these off as well. So my initial plan when I decided to do this was I was going to do it entirely long form and not edit it, but I can already see that that's probably not going to be a good idea because it'll be about 4 hours long and probably not the most exciting video in the world. There we go. So this is one of the cooling fans. These are generally attached to the motherboard to an extent, but you can sometimes then break them off the power supplies, but I'm not so sure what with the modern builds whether that's a done thing or not. 120mm case fan. Keeps it cool. It's things like that if you're building your PC yourself for the first time you might forget that you kind of need, but when you generally buy a PC case it will come with at least one case fan, usually more. Ideally you want an equal amount in as out so you can get a flow going through the machine. Because I have a broken one on the front, I was actually in a bit of a poor situation with this machine, but it survived somehow. Another thing I do need to do, I'm going to get this graphics card out because 1, it's in the way, and 2, it's rather warm. And this definitely varies by machine, but in my case there's a little PCI header on the back here, like a clamp that holds the whole thing closed. So you need to remove that. A lot of this will vary by the machine. The location of a lot of the stuff is identical, but you'll probably start to see the difference in how technology's moved on in a little while when I actually start moving the motherboard out. There's a little clamp on the back that keeps the graphics card in place. And this is the card, which you'll have to excuse me, I'm getting in the way because I think I need to push a little clip down. Yeah, is it? Yes, it is. Handily, this board is a PCI, has 2 PCI Express slots, which is where you plug your graphics card in. 16 slots there. I've never removed one of these since I put the thing in here. There we go, that's got it. There we go. Oh, thing I forgot to do as well is remove the 2 6-pin or 8-pin PCIe power supply connections here for the graphics card. Basically the graphics card actually uses so much electricity that it needs its own power source. I also have a small DVI digital block on the back here which I've forgotten about, which I need to remove. It's awkward to remove though, because DVI blocks always are awkward to remove. It basically converts the DVI port on the back of this, which is a more modern connection, to an old VGA port. I'll show you in a sec. I'm showing a lot of stuff here that I need to remember. There we go. That little thing was stuck on the back. More modern, older style. You can bring the card out now. This thing weighs, and there's your graphics card. That was where that was plugged in. It's actually brought out one of the standoffs there, which isn't great. And this card has HDMI, display port. Oh, that's pretty good actually. One of my monitors is display port. Maybe I'll use that. And the 2 DVIs. And the 2 big fans to keep the thing cool. And this is still warm. Admittedly, the PC has been on all day. We need to put this somewhere safe because I'm going to be keeping this for now, as I don't have a replacement card for it. For those who are interested, this is a GTX 970 Nvidia card. It was, when I bought it, about £340 I think. It's been a good card. So the rest of what's on that board is coming out and will stay out. That's all being replaced. I do have a new home for it. I'm giving it to a friend, so that's good. It'll see some use because I don't like seeing old equipment like this go unused. And basically now it's unplug everything. There's probably no real point in me like taking photos of this stuff so I know which order it goes back in, purely because I'm putting it on a different board. Everything will be in a different place. I'm hoping that the different board also accounts for things like the card reader that I fit into here and the USB ports on the front at the top. It's the most awkward thing to remove is the power slot supply. for the motherboard because it's a huge old chunky block of a connector. I really wish they'd do something to improve the quality of these in the future, because it kind of feels a bit old hat. I've decided that I'm not going to remove the entire power supply because really there's no reason to. There we go, that's that out. That is an additional power supply because of course the old style power supply wasn't powerful enough to power the new style motherboard. And that provides an additional two, I think 12 volt rails, I'm not sure to be honest, yeah. 2 times 12 volt rails to the motherboard to give a bit more power. These are SATA connections for the motherboard, sorry, for the hard disks, these little things here. These are fragile, so be careful with them. Everything here, all this mess of wires here is just for lights on the front of the PC. A lot of the time they try and put these into sleeve blocks, but this case is not an expensive case. It's always worrying when something on the motherboard moves that you probably shouldn't move. There is, I mean, yeah, obviously there's surface mount components on there that you could easily break if you're not careful, so yeah, patience is probably the key. How many SATA connections does this board have plugged into it? Of course, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 because the DVD player has 1. The SSD does. That SSD is going, and these 2 hard disks do. Right now though, I'm going to unplug them all. I'm taking the hard disk out even though I probably really don't need to, just because I want to make a little bit more room in here. I'm a little concerned at the size of this new motherboard compared to what's in here at the minute. Those are my 2 hard drives. We will be needing those for the new build because they have all of our holiday videos on them. I probably should say there as well, I do back all the holiday videos up with the cloud storage. So if, you know, the worst comes to the worst and I lose them, I do still have backups online for some of them. The more modern ones, the more recent ones are backed up on a laptop drive downstairs because cloud storage is not cheap. Cloud storage runs me, well, would run me if I used it in the format that you commonly do, about 60 quid a year, which is not expensive, but then a hard disk costs £60. Obviously there's no redundancy in a hard disk unless it's a backup of a backup. I shall be keeping this solid state storage disk, no moving parts. This one will be kept for Gemma's laptop to make her laptop run much quicker. If you've got an old laptop that you don't use very often and you don't mind taking stuff apart, try and swap the hard disk out for one of these solid state disk. And I'm talking old, like 5, 7, 8 years old. That'll bring it back to life. It'll be much quicker. I mean, it won't set the world alight. It won't. There's no miracles, but it will work quicker. Already we're getting the mess of tangled wires here. I think I'm going to need a light, but I don't actually have a lamp handy. Okay, motherboard. Processor, cooler and fan. Processor's underneath there. Because I'm not removing the processor, I don't need to mess around with any of that stuff. I'm just going to leave it. I now need to unscrew the motherboard. This is held on by Phillips screws, which go right through the board and into some standoffs underneath. And this is where one of my little concerns is going to come in, because I don't think there's going to be enough standoffs in here for the new board. And I don't know where my spare standoffs might be. However, I did see some spare bits in this bottom cupboard here, so we might get away with that. This is why it's probably best if you're building this to start with a new case as well, because new cases frequently come with every little bit of screw and adapter and adjuster you might need. And now we should be able to lift the board out. So that is pretty much like 90% of the PC, apart from your graphics card. That's where all the business happens. This area here will be covered by a metal standoff, a metal cover plate that I keep saying standoff a lot today. Cover plate that hides behind like that just makes it look neat on the back of the PC. I believe the new board, this is built into it, so it'll be slightly different, and it will vary by manufacturer. So I'm going to go against the recommended way of building PCs here. The recommended way of building a PC is to set it all up in the box, power it up, and then you know it works. But because I've got all the wires running through the case already, I'm going to build it into the case, which means if it doesn't work, I then have to remove it all from the case instead of just unplugging it and stick it back in the box and sending it back. But that's how confident I am that it's going to work first time. Before I do set this board up though, there are some little prep things that I need to do before I even get to this point. So this is coming out of the way. I have just noticed, by the way, that there's a dent in the back of that case. Quality merchandise there. It's actually a pretty good branded case. It was a Cooler Master and they're not bad, but it's been through the wars, it's old. Best thing about building new PCs, lots of unboxing. Maybe I should have done a double camera on this, shouldn't I, so I could actually look at you while I was chatting. In a perfect world, there'd be some spare base plate screws and standoffs in here. I can't remember if that's the case. With modern motherboards, I feel like it's not. We have one user manual, one document of sorts, warrant sign-up card for the mailing list. Of course, you always need to get your stickers. Your stickers are a major part of your PC build. Is that spare standoffs in there? Oh, you might be lucky here. Couple of, oh, those are nice actually. There's a couple of SATA cables in there. In fact, there's 4 SATA cables in there. That's nice. And I think that is to do with RGB headers and stuff, but we'll see in a bit. I am going to try and follow the manual on this because it's important. Let's have a look at the difference in size. Can you see why I'm a little bit concerned about this? This board's much longer and much wider. And I'm pretty sure my case will take the board because, well, I bloody hope it will anyway. But the problem I'll have is there'll be extra screws on the bottom of here that I'll need to find some standoffs for. I just need to do a quick count. We took 6 out. Our new board, this is a weighty beast, has 9. Let me go and see if I can find some standoffs. Okay, so we are back after a brief sojourn to try and find some standoff screws and standoffs. Those look like this, and basically those bolt into the base of your case and then the motherboard bolts onto the top of them. I managed to find 3 spare ones, so we should be okay to continue. At some point in the future I think I'm going to get a new case and do this a bit neater. But right now, let's continue. Yes, I'm going to read the manual. Handily, it does give you a list of all the items you need. I'll just make sure I've got everything. I've got everything. Okay, so we're going to start with the M2 slot. Let's see, we've got an A and a B M2 slot. So we've got a situation where this is something I've never done before. And the reason is because I've always used hard disks in the style of this one. The one I'll be using today is one of these. It's a tiny little thing. Now this goes under here. So I have 2 M2 slots. I only need one of them, so that's all I will be using. So my understanding is we unscrew the M2 slot, I'll need a different screw bit. Those are quite long screws. There we go. And under here we now have some exposed electronics. All being well, can't get in this thing. It's well wrapped. Unboxing number 2. Ooh, it's got a fancy metal case. But how do we get in it? Oh, I was opening it from the wrong end. Fail. There is my hard drive. Look at the size of that thing. Hard drive's probably a bit of the wrong term for this sort of thing nowadays. And this should just slide into there like that and is fastened down there. And then we have one fitted hard drive. Now, on the back of this was this form here, and I just need to double check, but I believe this is a thermal pad. So the fun thing is here, it doesn't appear to mention anything in here about there being any pad on the back of here, and yet I can clearly see there is one. And it comes off like so. So I'm just going to go with it. If in doubt, don't do what I do and don't guess. Phone ASUS and find out for sure. And that's my hard disk fitted. You wouldn't even know there was a hard disk on there. That's really weird. I've kind of done this a bit backwards. I really should put the processor on first because I think there's a bit more involved with this. So I'm just going to backtrack and do that. This is the bit nobody likes. Right. With it, this, your mileage may vary on this. This will change dependent on your processor, but I need to find out what type of heatsink I've got, and then we decide whether we need these. Right. So that means we open up this bad boy. This is my processor, and we'll open that up. And see the goodies inside. This is like the dream unboxing session, isn't it? That is just a pamphlet. That is the business. That is one AMD Ryzen 3600X processor. We'll put that somewhere where I'll probably drop it. And this is the boring bit that stops it from going bang. Disclaimer, it may still go bang. Inside here we have one CPU cooler. The idea being it dissipates the heat from the processor and cools things down. It's much bigger than the cooler in the Intel machine, but what you have to be careful with these when you've got this like this. In this state here, I just have to be careful not to get that touched with anything, not put that down on anything, because what that is a thermal compound. It's like a thermal paste, and that dissipates heat from your processor through into this. So what I'll do for now that I know how it mounts, I'm just going to pop it back where I found it. And we'll leave it there. It's not the end of the world if you do damage it, but if you do damage it, you just need to clean it all off and get some thermal compound. Basically, it's an extra purchase. So what we have to do now is, I'm just going to double check before I've done this because I've not done this one before. Yep, unscrew. We'll keep those safe just in case we need them in the future. So the next step is the installation of the processor, the exciting thing. And I'm going to sit down for this because I need to get steady. This is the process for installing the CPU for an AMD chip. Something I've not done for quite a while, and I'm quite nervous. So we lift this up and this lever up here. Lever has to be pointing upwards. Then we take our CPU die and be very careful because it's full of pins on the bottom. Now, there's a little triangle just down there which I believe lines up to the little triangle that's in this corner of the CPU. When I look at the bottom of here, there is actually a pin missing from that corner, and there's a pin missing in that corner of the slot. We basically drop it, make sure it's all in place, make sure you've bent no pins, because if you bent pins you've got trouble because there's hundreds of them on the bottom of here. I'm just going to double check all that. Yeah, it looks nice and neat and seated. And then lever goes back down. Nothing snapped, nothing went bang. And that's done. Right, okay. And of course we're not done here because we still have work to do. The next step is to get the CPU, fan and cooler fitted. So this is a case of now carefully, oh, one thing to check before I continue, I did mention this earlier, make sure there's no plastic film on that. I did see someone on Reddit had posted that they've been running a PC for 6 years with plastic film on there, and apparently it didn't kill it, which is remarkable. But this should be done when screwing in alternately. Oh, it's horrible the way it squeaks, isn't it? I took left me screw head behind, so you do it in a crisscross pattern and it just slowly lowers down the cooler into place onto your CPU. It's not threaded in properly on this side. But it does hit a dead stop, so you kind of know you've gone far enough, which is nice. There we go, nice and tight on. And the last step, and most important step, is to make sure that this bit is plugged into the board. In my case, it's down here somewhere. I just need to double check, but it will vary by manufacturer. Here we go. I'll just route that so it's not going to get foul that fan in any way, shape or form. So with the CPU fan plugged in there, when the CPU gets hot, this will say, hey, turn the speed of the fan up. Everyone's happy. So we need to install our memory next. In my case, my memory is red. It makes absolutely no difference. However, I did accidentally, and purely because this RAM was on sale, manage to match the colour of the motherboard quite nicely. Oh, I hate doing this. There we go. That's one of them in. They clip into place. We pick it up and give it a steady clip, and that's nicely in there. So actually now, the guts of the machine's built. We just need to connect everything to it now. And that's where we have to do a bit of spaghetti junction. And now, we pop our mightily heavy board into this case. Like so. And now we just make sure it's lined up straight with our standoffs underneath. And then I need to get a torch on this. Yeah, it's a little off. A little, but it's not horrendous. It'll straighten up as I'm putting the screws in. Another tip is to not put your screwdriver on top of your, underneath your case. Unfortunately, due to the unique way in which I lose everything that I put down, I'm going to have to use 3 different coloured screws to screw in these last 3 standoffs. But this is probably only going to be semi-temporary, because I do feel like I might treat this machine to a new case, because, let's be honest, it looks really cool. It would be nice to show it off in something that's a bit neater. That's good and sturdy, everything's in place. Right, with our board in place, we now have to make sense of all this crazy wiring that's coming from this power supply. Oh, and I forgot about that fan on the front there, we probably need to get rid of that as well. Okay, that's done. One fan on the front. I also took up an opportunity to put a fan on the back though when I had the camera off. Just to show you, these fans are just 4 screw holes and you tap threads into them when you're screwing them. These are very cheap fans, they were £20 for 5 of them, so I've got 3 spare at the minute. It was cheaper to buy 5 than 2, so there we go. So after doing all that, now we start wiring up mess and spaghetti. The easiest one to start with is this massive monster here. Wow, I'm already struggling to find where I need things to go. I'm not going to spend too much time on cable management now. I will probably come back around and revisit this, but this huge block goes pretty much where it was on the old board, which is right here. So I'm just going to plug that in, seat it into place. It's just a case of, I know where all these go for the most part, and when I'm not sure I just refer back to the manual. Like this one here, there's only one spot it can go, which is there. That fitted in the one spot it was made to fit in, that's useful. this cable here will need to come around the top of the case and across to there, and it's not going to at this rate, so I might have to think about that one. I might need to see if I can find some slack. It's where I'll need the back of the case open, so you'll have to bear with me. And we are back in the room. So, what have I learned? This cable's not long enough. And weirdly, this PC came with two, well, this power supply came with two of these cables, and neither of them are long enough. Ideally, I want to go up the back of the board at the top and along here, because it needs to come in this corner down here. The weird thing I noticed in this corner, there's a 4-port plug and an 8-port plug, and I only have 8. So I was just making sure I didn't need to do anything with that 4-port, and it turns out I don't. So for now, and this isn't ideal, I'm just going to feed this under here and across and just plug it in, and in time I'll maybe see if I can find an extension for that and run it round the back. Now these modular power supplies, you have to match the cables with the power supply, so an EVGA power supply has to have EVGA cables, because all the stuff down here is unique, you can't mix, so I can't use Corsair stuff, or else I might blow the power supply, motherboard, everything. It's not a problem if you buy the power supply, it comes with all the cables, and that's because this is a modular power supply. If you're just buying any old power supply, it'll come with, I've got one over there but I can't show you right now, all the cables will just come out in a big bundle like that, and then you'll plug in what you need, and anything you don't need just stuff down in the bottom. These are a bit easier to work with, but they're more expensive. So in my case, I have just routed it round the side. This cable management is trash, so don't, you know, if you're going to pick up on that, that's fine, I don't mind, because I'll admit it myself, it's not great. But for now, for what I need, it's just going to have to do, because I haven't got time to be rerouting everything and getting extensions and stuff. I want to get the PC built today. Right, so that is the power supply to the main board and the power supply to the CPU. Uses a lot of power. We are missing the graphics card. I might want to get that in now, just so that I know what it looks like with that in. And we also need to find homes for all this stuff. So this looks, I've got to admit, this looks like a mess, and it looks complicated and it looks confusing. But if you just break it down into small tasks, it's really not that difficult. It's just everything's got a home, just find the home for it and move on. These can be a bit of a faff, because they're individual ones that have little individual jumpers on here. Mainly the one you're concerned with is the power button. The rest of them you can leave for now and just figure them out in your own time. I've got some USB headers here, HD audio and 1897, so these two will be the headers for the headphone and microphone socket on the front of the PC. Don't even need to plug them in if I don't want. If I don't want to use the headphone socket on the front of the PC, just leave them, cut them off, do whatever. I don't even know if this board has a connector for that kind of stuff anymore. We can find out from the instruction manual what we're looking at. It's a 9-pin with a blank pin. It could be that one there. I'll have a look in the manual in a moment. So it's just a matter of confirming stuff with the manual. This is a USB one, which is 9 pins with the end one blanked, and there's pretty much only one space I can see where that will fit. USB headers 1 and 2 and 4, is that there? It's really difficult to see on this board because it's written on grey text on a black background, and this torch doesn't help. I'm just trying to see if I can find any others. Alright, we'll bang that in there. If it don't work, it don't work. There's not really a lot of damage we can do with a USB header, I don't think. We have a fan header though, which we can probably bridge off. And yeah, that is something audio related, I think. I'll do some reading on that in a moment. Again, it's just double checking with your instruction manual. They all do come with a fairly decent instruction manual. This isn't the best one, I'll admit, but it'll show me what I need to find and where it needs to go. High definition front audio module to this connector to avail the motherboard's high definition audio capability. That says HD audio on it, so I'm going to guess it's that one. Comes together pretty quickly once you start plugging these bits in. Just make sure I got that in properly. I did. I'm I apologise I can't show you this in a bit more detail, it's just really difficult. I really don't have enough hands. Okay, so that leaves you. We're already looking a bit better. Your graphics card will come to you later. We've got 2 starters that we need to get plugged in up here, which shouldn't be a problem. I might actually be able to break off one of these, not break off, breaking off would be bad, but remove one of these SATA connectors because I'm not running with as many drives in this machine now. I was running with 4 SATA drives before. I was running with the Blu-ray drive, the SSD for booting off, and then the 2 spinning discs, the traditional hard discs, that's 4. I'm now just going to have the 2 traditional hard discs. The old SSD is just not big enough to warrant putting back into this machine. See, this is where the beauty of having the modular power supply comes into play, because I've just been able to chop all this wiring out of the case now. It can just go in the cupboard for when I inevitably put more hard disks in and have to reverse it all. And that leaves us our other SATA drives, which are on this one here, and we will be using those, so I'll keep those handy. What have we got here? That's our fan that we just put in. And you are a second USB header? Yeah, you're for... what are you for? Ah, you're for my card reader. We have a second USB connection here, so we'll use that one. I could make this a lot simpler by not having the card reader and not bothering with the front USBs, only having the power button for now, just to get the thing up and running. But while I'm in here, I might as well just get them all plugged in. Spinny discs back in. Now, I did read that it's better to try and fit these in up here in a different bay, but I just don't have the room for them right now, and I don't have the other bay. I would have to buy extra things. So for now, they're going to have to go back where they came from, in here, and we line up the holes, pop this drive bay doohickey in, toolless drive bay storage tool, and it's in there now. Don't need to bother with screws and messing around. So for this one, I'm going to leave a gap between the two to help dissipate heat. To be honest, I could probably put one right down at the bottom and it'd be out of the way of that fan. It's probably not too bad an idea. I know the fan will cool it, but I'm more concerned with having the fan cooling the machine than this hard disk. Clipped home. So rather than leave all this blurry footage of me struggling with these little power connectors, I put this diagram up which shows what I'm actually doing. I'm just connecting the front connectors to the board and we'll move on from there. Right, I unplugged a few bits, but I managed to get most of these cables in there. There is one last piece, and this is definitely optional, but this is a tiny little speaker. When you turn the machine on, it will do some self-tests, and the speaker will beep if it makes any mistakes. If the speaker beeps, you can then use that to diagnose problems, so I always put them in. So, other than plugging these hard disks back in and getting the graphics card in, we're pretty much done. Getting the old graphics card back in there, which strangely also matches colour-wise. Right, what we've got now is a new situation, which I hadn't anticipated, and that is that my graphics card has moved down in this new board, so I now need to punch a hole in the side of the case. Groovy. So at some point I'm going to need to get a blanking plate to blank the old hole from the old graphics card location. With that blanking plate removed, I just need to attach the power and the graphics card just slotted into place, and with a reassuring, slightly scary click. It's an 8-pin plug, but 2 of the pins actually split off, and they just split off at just the right angle, so I couldn't fit it all back together again. Back plate on. I mean, we're kind of at the point now where we could fire it up and see what happens, but this graphic card is quite weighty, so if I don't set it into place with some screws, it will start to put quite a lot of pressure on the build, and I don't really want to do that. So, did anyone notice the thing I missed? Would you like a clue? Spinny, spinny, fan go brr. Yeah, I forgot to plug the fans in. Traditionally, in the PCs that I used to build, you used to plug the fan directly into the power supply. When you turn the PC on, the fan went at full whack. Nowadays, you plug the fans into the motherboard and the motherboard manages them. The question we now have is, where in the motherboard do we plug them in? And we have a channel for fans up here, which I think is going to be the logical spot for this one. Yep, see. Okay, this is a 3-pin fan. Right, okay, that's fine. Panic over. 3-pin fans can go into 4-pin holders. They just go into 3 of the pins. Like so. And again, cable management becomes an issue. We'll run it down the side of there for now. And I mean, why you need a fans cable so long, I don't know. Probably because this one will need to be long. Where even is it? And that's my second fan plugged in. I do have optionally a third the third fan socket on there, so I could put a fan on the side if I'm seeing any issues with heat in this case. It might fail the graphics card though, so I'm going to leave it for now. Okay, with that done, that's pretty much the PC build. It took me a little bit longer than planned because I didn't have those standoffs. I had to go and retrieve some of those. And obviously the cables are a bit of a mess. A lot of a mess. So I'm going to have to revisit that at some point in the future. But for now, I think I'm going to fire it up and see if it works. Rather interestingly, I've just applied power to the machine and some lights have come on. Let's see what happens when I fire it up. Now it won't boot straight away because it doesn't have an operating system, but the fact that the power's come on is a good sign. The fact that we have no output from the monitor is an interesting one. Oh. Okay. Interesting. No keyboard detected. The keyboard's clearly working. But, I mean, we've got something on the screen. So, you know, I'm going to say we've made some success already. So now I guess the fun is to try and get the thing working. Generic SDMMC, SanDisk, generic compact flash, generic SMXD picture. Okay, so those are all my USB drives. M2's got the Sabrent rocket, SATA 6G, SATA 6G, Toshiba, great stuff. The only thing is it hasn't picked up my keyboard. Now, let me see if I can plug the keyboard into a different set of USB ports, if that helps. Oh, interesting, no CPU installed, that's not right. Let's hope that that's just a symptom of me not having... Oh, there we go. So this is the BIOS, this is where you maintain the sort of the PC to get it all kicked in. But we do have a CPU listed as a 3600X with 3800 megahertz, that's perfect, speed 2666 MHz. Interesting stuff. Boot option 1, I am going to say is... that's interesting. Yeah, I do have to... Okay, that's fine. I've got a USB stick plugged in with a Windows installation on it, and it's just saying it wants to boot from those first. So let's see what happens if we save changes and reset. Okay. Okay, on that reset, it's gone straight into doing a Windows update, Windows install, which is perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see. Install now. I've not connected to this in the network in any way, shape or form, so it can't connect to the internet. I want to get Windows on there and installed and get my account set up before I do anything else. Now, I do have a product key, but I'm not going to show it on the screen for obvious reasons. Just choosing that new drive that I purchased as my boot drive. And I'll do the Windows install. And just like that, I logged into my live account and it activated my copy of Windows 10. That was super easy. Oh, it's now installing the new version of Edge, which is actually based on Chrome. Anyway, yeah, so I think with that we're going to leave this video for now. We've got pretty good stuff going. We got it built. I just need to put the sides back on and make myself at home, and then we should be good. And then we can start looking at how much of a change we've made so far with the performance. Probably not much. We'll make a lot more change with performance in a month or two's time when the graphics cards market becomes a bit more favourable to me. See you later.